Hello beautiful, welcome back to Dance Beautiful Life. Today I'm going to be sharing with you kind of a mid-month wrap-up. I was not certain what this video was going to be when I was looking at my calendar, but then I realized I had read enough books that a mid-month wrap-up is in order, or the end of the month wrap-up will be an hour long. So I'm going to talk about the books I've read so far, my thoughts on them, and then at the end of the month, I'll just kind of mention them, and in that wrap up, talk more in depth about those books. If you're new to this channel, hello, my name is Natasha. I do videos on books, bullet journaling, basically anything I want to do a video about. This is not my normal setup. I'm just kind of sitting at my desk today. I don't know what I look like. The lighting is probably crazy and harsh and weird, but you know what, I'm going with it because this is how I feel today. I would love it if you would subscribe, click the like button, and if you're into notification bells, we have one of those as well. All right, so without any further ado, I'm going to get into this video. So the books that I have read so far, I think I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that I finished so far. And I'm also calling this TBR for the rest of July Double Trouble, because what I've noticed is I've picked out books this month where there's at least 2 by the same author. So here's your first half and then you'll get your second half. But actually one of them's already done too. Anyway, I'm just gonna talk about books. There's a mix of all kinds of genres in here, so I've been mixing up my genres a lot because I've been doing so much historical fiction and so much of the like Great Depression era type stuff that I wanted to do something else, just to kind of get myself, thinking in other ways besides just on that. But anyway, the first book that I read and finished this month was one of my translated works, The Red Notebook by Antoine Lorraine, or Anthony Lorraine. I'm not sure how this person says it, but this is translated from French, and all the translated novels that I've read, I find that the French ones are sometimes I wouldn't say the most difficult, but they're the most difficult to get through as far as if you don't speak French, because they do not translate any of the proper nouns, so like places and things like that, they are all in the French still, so you don't actually know what they mean. Also, there's a lot of words in French that we do not have in English, and we actually borrow a lot of their words, like fiance I've said before. RSVP stands for this, which is French. Things like that we don't particularly have a word for, maybe something we could describe, but they actually have a word for, so we borrow a lot of their words. So with that in mind, just keep that in your brain. Reading a French translated novel, you're going to have a lot more French in there than you expected. But anyway, this book. This is about a woman who is mugged, and her purse and stuff are taken away, and she goes across the street to a hotel, tells them what happened, and they let her stay the night. Turns out she goes into a coma. And down the street, a local bookshop owner finds her purse, realizes no woman would just leave her really nice bag on top of a bag of trash, And so he takes it to the police, and they're like, take it here, take it there, blah, blah, blah. And he winds up just like taking it home and trying to figure out who she is on his own. And in the midst, he finds out that he really thinks this person is someone he would like to meet. So that is what this is about. It was really cute. I did enjoy it, and I gave it 3 stars. The next one was another Isabel Allende, A Long Puddle of the Sea. And this one, similar to Violette, we are in Chile, but it starts out in Spain. So where I start out in the Spanish Civil War, before, like, when Franco's trying to take over, and we have a brother who is fighting, and we have another brother who's a doctor, and then there's a girl who lives with the family, and the soldier falls in love with the girl, but of course he leaves, and he has to come back and leave and all of that, and he's killed before they can get married, and she's pregnant. And so the other brother, he's just, everybody's like trying to flee out of Spain into France or wherever they can go. And so he makes a way for her and the family to cross over to France. He eventually gets there as well. They're in internment camps and things like that. And she, she's, like I said, she's pregnant with his brother's son. But there is a poet, I believe, and this is a true part of the story, a poet who has been, by the government of Chile, has been tasked with going to Spain and finding refugees and bringing them over, like the best ones. Like, they have a specific list of things that they would like, and he has his own list. And in order for them to be a part of that, they get married. So he says this is his son, this is his wife, and all of that. Their plan is to go to Chile and get divorced and all that, but at that time there's no divorce in Chile. So they actually stay together for quite some time, and they're best friends. And this is just the tip of the iceberg with this book. This is just the synopsis. There's so much that goes on in this book. This was a really good one. I put it up there with Violetta, which I loved so much. But you are traveling, like I said, Spain to France, Argentina, Chile, all of that stuff. But you get the political sides of everything that's going on, but it's more about the family and the friends and the people. So highly, highly recommend this one. Definitely easy 3.5, 4-star book. And I have another Lende on the docket for this month as well. The next book I read was Some Luck by Jane Smiley. I was so excited because this would be my first Jane Smiley book, and I've heard nothing but great things about Jane Smiley. And so I got this audiobook, and the narrator's awesome. The narrator made the book better. And at first, like, you start off in 1920. It's a trilogy, so it's the beginning of a trilogy. And you go from 1920 to 2020, I believe. But this first book stops in, like, the 50s. You start out with this man, this woman, their child, who's a baby. And that's where you kick off. You get a little bit of their background, what's going on, who they are, and then whoosh, all right? The family grows, and as it goes through time, there was one part in the very beginning where you're actually seeing life from the baby's perspective, and I was like, I don't know about this. But I just kept with it, and there was a couple times I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this. But as I got into the book and it got more interesting as it went along, I did enjoy it. So I gave it 3 stars because it was up and down for me. But I have heard that the second book is way better, and so I'm really looking forward to getting that one eventually, and as an audiobook as well. I believe the same person narrates it, at least I hope it does, because narrator, like I said, really made it worthwhile. And there's just so much, because you are traveling through time fairly quickly, and every chapter is 1920, 1921, 1922. You're literally going year by year and the things that happen, and it's literally just stuff that happens in a family, but sometimes families get involved in very important things. So I did enjoy this one. Like I said, I gave it a 3-star, and I do plan on at least giving that second one a try. All right, so the next one that I did was Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. Gabrielle Zevin wrote one of my favorite books of all time, and a lot of people, it's a very beloved book to them, The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. And in reading that book and listening to this book, I realized that Gabrielle Zevin likes to write her stories in unusual ways. For instance, in the beginning of The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery, he says, he's a bookseller, and he says that he loves short stories best. So you find that this book is actually written in short story form. So every chapter is kind of like a short story in his life that brings you to the end. This one, the beginning, you wound up with multiple POVs, you know, and then you wind up with a certain 13-year-old's chapters, and they're told in epistolary form, and which means letter form, but of course it's email form. And when you're listening with the audiobook, the email intros of like like all of that can be a little daunting, but get through it. They're really good because it's telling a story from another point of view. And then you get back to our main character, Jane, and it's told in a choose your own story format. Then we go back to normal multiple POVs. Okay, so what it is we have a young girl of 20 who is an intern with a congressman, and he and her have an affair. And after a while, they get busted. And of course, even though she has a degree in political science and all of these things, and she's been a very valuable intern to them and all of that, she's ruined. But he can go up there with his wife, apologize, say he knows what he did was wrong, and move on with his life. And so she's like, what has happened? And then she finds out through other bad choices that she made, she's pregnant. And you think throughout the book, and I think throughout the book, that it's not the senator who's the father, but there's always that little doubt in your mind. So that's addressed in the book. And yes, you do find out who the father is at the end of the book, like for certain. But anyway, she finds out she's pregnant, and so she's like, I have to do what I have to do to work, make a life for my family, my child, and all of this. So the problem is everybody can Google my name and figure out who I am and all of this. But she's like, the problem is the name. So she changes her name and she moves. She calls her mother kind of anonymously every now and then, but she doesn't really know anything about her life and all of that. And then she makes a life for herself in a very small town with her daughter. And then one day she's basically pushed like, hey, you should run for mayor. And there we go. That's where you have a diving off kind of a point there. But very good book. I give it 3 stars. I did enjoy it, and it made me like hungry to read more. I do have her next book, which I think is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So maybe I'll get to that this month. If not, I can pick it up next month. But I really have enjoyed the 2 things that I've read by Gabrielle Zevin, and I'm looking forward to more. If I look really pale or sound kind of funny, I'm a little sick. So just get that out of the way. That's also why I don't have my normal setup, because laziness. All right. The next book that I read, Hummingbird, Salamander by Jeff Vandermeer. God bless you, and thank you so much for your weird sci-fi, Jeff Vandermeer. Like I said, have been reading so much historical fiction and things like that I just felt like I needed a weird sci-fi, and this is who I go to for those. And this book, I'm not going to spoil it, so I can't tell you too much about it, so I'm just going to tell you the basis, the basic. I would love to have a discussion with someone about this book, about like who's read it as well, but here we go. We have our main character, and what, does she have a name? We'll just call her Jane. Our main character, Jane, and that's what she calls herself. She goes to a coffee shop one morning, and she is handed an envelope with a key and address in it, an address in it. And she goes to said address and finds a taxidermy hummingbird. And from there, craziness ensues. Think of this more as a thriller sci-fi. But what I will say in this is the story itself maybe isn't the point as much as the things going on in the world around the story. That's kind of the point. So there's like bioterrorism, there's she's on the run. It's just a lot of stuff happening. It's very high stakes for her, and you're in your brain and her brain. She doesn't know what's going on, you don't know what's going on, and all of that. But I really did enjoy this, and because of that, I have some more Jeff Vandermeer on my shelf for this month. And that, yeah, it seems like a very kind of straightforward synopsis, but it's because I can't go beyond the synopsis, because you need to go into that book blind. But it is a high stakes kind of like thriller, let's move, let's go, like they can't know I'm here kind of a thing, what's going on. She's looking for this specific person and all this stuff. Really enjoyed it. Gave it, I think, 4 stars or 3 stars. I don't remember what I gave it. I enjoyed the book. That's the main thing. I really enjoyed the book. The next book I read was Bad Astronauts by Grady Hendrix. He normally writes horror, but this is not a horror. This is more of a satire, science fiction. I really enjoyed this book. It was funny. There's some good and bad to it, but here's the gist. There's a former astronaut who lives in South Carolina. He's old, and he's a hillbilly. His whole family is hillbillies. But his cousin is also an astronaut, and he is stuck on the International Space Station because for whatever reason, he was up there with other people from other countries because our shuttle missions or whatever are over. Program is done, and he had to sacrifice himself to basically stay up there and let other people get home because that whole trip. But anyway, he's basically got like 6 months to live up there unless they get him down, and NASA's not doing anything. So this guy decides that, I think it's Walter. He has decided that he's going to get his cousin's kid. Like, so this is like cousin once or twice removed. He's like, I'm gonna get my cousin's kid. So he calls the family over to say, we're gonna build a rocket, we're gonna go over there. They think he's nuts. Turns out other people show up, they hear about this. He actually gets some rocket scientists over because, I mean, what are they doing now? And this is just hilarious. And yeah, I laughed a lot in this book. It's got a good little message behind it. The only things I would say, if you're interested in this book, there's a lot of country hillbilly language and cursing and things like that. Not as bad as it could be, but it's very like American spirit. We're gonna build stuff, we're gonna do this, and all of that. There's friendships that come in, there's like boundaries that are broken, and it's very cute. But I enjoyed this book, and so if you need something quick and easy and funny, then funny. Okay, then the next book that I'm currently listening to, haven't quite finished it yet, is The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeyset by Annie Lyons. I'm doing the audiobook for this, and I feel like I've almost stopped a couple times to go get the regular book because I'm not meshing with the audiobook author well. Not that she's bad, she's just not, it's not enjoyable for me to listen to her, but the story's been good so far, and this is so far one of the only books with a dual timeline that I like the present day more than the past. I'll be able to talk about it a little bit more once I finish the book and get my wrap up, but that's the one that I'm currently listening to on audiobook. And then the last one that I actually finished last night is Vintage 1954 by Antoine Lorraine, another French translated book. This is probably one of the easiest of those to read. This book is adorable. I give it 4 stars. It was a really good time. I really enjoyed this. The premise is that in the year 1954 in Paris, a lot of people were seeing flying saucers and flashing lights and things like that. And one night, this particular man was in his vineyard in 1954. He saw the flying saucers. He said something about it. People thought he was crazy. In 1978, he finds a vintage of his wine from 1954. He takes a drink of it, and he winds up in 1954. Flash forward to 2017, you've got 4 people who meet and something happens, and then to celebrate their victory, they had found this vintage bottle, 1954. One of the characters was the great-great-grandson of the person who originally saw the flying saucer and who disappeared later, and told the story about this vintage, and they laughed and blah blah blah, and they all drank the bottle, and then the next morning they find themselves all in 1954. So it's their journey of figuring out, oh crap, we're in 1954, and how do we get back, and then what they believe the science is behind it, which is actually explained pretty doggone well, I think. So I thought this was amazing. I loved it. I love the characters. Very cute as well. And I highly, highly recommend. I feel like if you want to start a journey reading Antoine Lorrain books, this one is a good one to start with. The French is easier because it's mostly like very famous things, but you find they run into lots of Hollywood stars and artists and things like that going on in 1954. So good times. Really enjoyed it. All right, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope to see you very soon with another video. So have a great day, gorgeous.